Hi friends, and welcome to my beginner's guide for Siralim Ultimate. I'm Icon, and this video will guide you through the basic steps about how to get started with this game. Siralim is an insanely deep and feature-heavy game, and whenever you think you've seen every layer of the game, you'll just receive another layer, and that's really fun, but that's also super overwhelming when you get started. So I decided to do this video and help you out and give you some sort of a red line you can follow. So first up, we see here the beginning screen where you can select your character classes. At the beginning, we can select from 15 different classes, and that alone could be quite overwhelming. So I want to talk about classes and how they influence your gameplay and which classes are good to begin with. So first off, don't worry too much. Like the game already says, don't think too hard. You can always change it later on. That's true. Nothing here is chisel in stone. But before you are able to change your character class the first time, you have to play quite a while with that class, so you should probably pick something which is fun for you. My personal recommendation is just read it all, especially the playstyle section is very descriptive, and pick up something which you really like. But if that's just too much for you, here are my personal recommendations for beginners. As you already might have noticed, the Druid here is my first recommendation. The Druid has a specialization which favors smaller teams. So since this game has 1,200 different creatures to choose from, it's a lot easier when you have a smaller team. The playstyle of the Druid is focused around buffing a smaller team and making it super strong. So if the amount of combination stuff is overwhelming you, Druid is a very, very good way to go. On top of that, the Hell Knight is another guy I can really recommend because he is a offensive type class, so attacking is quite a straightforward strategy, which is not too intricate or relying on too complicated mechanics. That's always a good way to go. Therefore, I also recommend the Reaver right next, because the Reaver excels at longer lasting fights, which is also just a mechanic which makes you stronger the longer the combat goes. Very good for beginners, because when I started out, my combos were really bad with this game, and you get a benefit from that, because if your combos are bad, you're a slow killer. Ha! Just the right thing to go. And on top of that, I want to recommend the Tribalist, because the Tribalist has a playstyle where you just put same things together. So you have to select same creatures, put them together, and they synergize out of that. I personally think that is also a very simple way of building a team, so I can really recommend that. What you choose, though, is entirely up to you. The game features an insane variety of playstyles, from focusing on only one creature, which is the centerpiece of your formation, like the Animator, and a playstyle where your whole strategy is about taking damage and reflecting damage, or dodging damage and going for counter attacks like the monk here. There's really a lot of it in there, and that's not all the specializations. Later in the game you receive more. Alright, whatever you choose, it's up to you. Let's get into the beginning of the game. Here we are in our beautiful little home castle. I have chosen the Paladin class for the example here, and I have completed the first suite of quests. The first few quests teach you the fundamental things about how to manage your creatures, how to forge artifacts which can be equipped by your creatures, and how to create spell gems. So I assume that you have already played that part of the tutorial before we continue, because I honestly think the game does a great job at explaining these things, and I don't need to explain that twice. So at the beginning you start out with only 2 creatures, and that's a pretty good point to start. My character class here is all about reflecting damage officially, so you can not do too much at the beginning, and don't you worry too much about perks or anything like that. First we just go inside the first realm. You can select here how deep you go and such. These things are really pretty straightforward. So inside the realms, your main goal is grinding God Favor. God Favor is really, really important, and slaying enemies to acquire new creatures, or just get killed in that scenario. Getting killed is not really any issue. You just drop some of your resources and you lose some kind of streak bonus, that's all. So you don't need to worry too much about attacking, about losing, I mean. So out here you level up your creatures and you collect knowledge about monsters. Knowledge about monsters allows you to summon new monsters, and therefore the cycle continues. Also keep in mind that everything here is interactable. You can enter caves and you can destroy pretty much everything on the map, and there's a ton of achievements on top of that together. Achievements increase the amount of God Favor gained. The more you collect from them, the easier it is to grind up your God Favor. So speaking about which, this game is extremely feature heavy. So you can upgrade your arsenal on so many different layers. There's artifacts, there's spell gems, there's the God Favors, there's your perks, there are so many things, and layer after layer you can do more of that. But if that does overwhelm you, don't you worry about it. You can't just play it like you want to, in any tempo that you want to. Just keep in mind, every time you finish a main story quest, you basically unlock something, and these are happening all 3 levels. So here we receive loot. All these mechanics are really, really easy to pick up, and I'm not going to explain them too much here. Just want to give you a starting example for the basic gameplay loop. You run around, kill enemies, and collect knowledge about how to summon them yourself. The more knowledge, by the way, you have about these enemies, the better the rewards become and the less damage you take from them. So there are benefits about grinding them out. Basically everything in this game has benefits if you grind it out. Even if you destroy just random tiles on the map, there's always a benefit from that. So your first goals as a new player should be run around, do as many of these story quests as you can, and unlock new features whenever you feel yourself fit for that or bored by the old things. Also keep in mind that it is becoming easier and easier to beat the story quests the more you level your creatures. So the formula is quite easy. Every 3 levels, dungeon levels, you will encounter a boss, and that boss will unlock something, and then you will receive a new tile set to play on. And if I remember correctly, there are right now 21 tile sets while I'm recording this early access version, so that there's a lot of content already. Also, keep in mind, every single creature in this game is kind of unique. It has one unique skill, like this here, the sickness is its unique trait, and it also comes with a complete unique set of stats and a personality which influences its stat development. It has a own race and a own elemental assignment, so there's really a lot to dig through. And if you are a little bit confused, like I am quite often, the Codex is your friend. The Codex offers you all the knowledge you want to, and I really used a lot of the status effects list, where you're able to just check out what all the statuses do, because there are a ton of statuses in this game. And I would say check this out whenever you are really, really overwhelmed with something and you want to know what it's about. Apart from that, here go a few tips and tricks that I've discovered which make your controls a little bit easier. In the options menu, you can go into the gameplay things, and there's a turbo mode. The game will tell you a lot of these things the longer you play, but I really felt like the turbo mode was one of the things I really wanted to have. So it's quite simple. If you hold down the E button, you can just fast forward through combats. It's going to select always the next action you have defaulted. Also keep in mind that your creatures can have a certain strategy. So you can actually tell your creature to always defend, to always cast, to always attack, whatever. So some creatures do trigger special effects if they defend or if they attack. And so due to turbo mode, I just hold the E button and I keep attacking, and I don't need to repeatedly press the E button. Believe me, if you're playing Siralim longer, you really like that. Also, what I personally loved was the God Favor HUD, because you can see how much God Favor you right now have until the next level in the lower section of the screen. These are just simple things, and I don't want to deepen them too much. So after you have found yourself comfort in the game and you have discovered how the basics work, I really can only recommend you to just take a look around, grind out the first levels at your own leisure, and do things on your own speed. The first goals to tackle are, besides continuing the story, build up a team which you like. So you should probably check out the monsters every now and then. You either inspect them directly during combat to fight them more precisely, but honestly, I personally don't look at enemies at all at some point, because I would be studying hours and hours. I try to grind them out, and if it's not working out, I start inspecting my enemies. I usually start inspecting stuff which I encountered when I'm looking for new things to summon for my team, because you want to create a team which fits into your gameplay. So how do you develop your gameplay, though, might you now ask yourself? So your character's perks are here, and you will earn perk points for continuing the story. Study your perks well, because they give you an idea which kind of creatures you would like to have, because ideally you pick creatures whose traits synergize well with your perks. So about perks, don't you worry about picking wrong perks. You got here the magical wardrobe, where you can just reset your perks for free. And you can just place them down. No problem. So I really enjoy that about this game, because this way there's never any wrong decision whatsoever. So here you have your overview about monsters to summon. These are all the critters I have encountered so far, and if the bar behind them says ready, you can summon one. If not, you need to defeat more of them or collect more knowledge about them to summon them. The conditions vary. So you can also sort them differently. I really like to sort them differently, and one thing worth mentioning though is creatures can only equip spell gems fitting to their what's the class? Yeah, fitting to their class. So chaos creatures can equip chaos gems and so on. If you want to equip a chaos gem to a nature creature, there are tricks to do that, but more about that in a second. So now I've said enough about the pure beginners part. Let's get over to a bigger account or a bigger character, and I'm going to show you around how the transitioning will work in the longer run. So we're now going into a Necromancer, which is played like 27 hours, and this is what my right now more experienced class looks like. You have I've got 16 pages of creatures so far, and I can summon tons and tons of other creatures, and this is all quite overwhelming. I built my team around a certain strategy here, and I did that by just looking at the creatures and checking out which traits looked funny to me. Then I noticed this guy here, which says he casts a corpse explosion equal to the times of the amount of debuffs. So that means when an enemy dies who has 3 debuffs on himself, this guy will cast 3 corpse explosions. I really liked that, so I built a team which applies as many debuffs as possible on the enemies, and I just need to smack down one enemy and I trigger a chain reaction. This is not by far not the most powerful strategy the game has to offer, but it's a lot of fun, and you can really enjoy yourself while doing that. So if you really struggle about what to do, just keep playing the game, smack enemies, and from time to time check out your brazier here and do whatever you want to do. So if you want to change your specializations, you can later in the game start projects where you can unlock new things. Among these are specializations. There are the 15 basic specializations, and there are also, I counted them through, these are more than 20, so you can't even select all the thingies first. So you can also expand your castle with new features. Like I said, this game is insanely feature heavy, so this is just the beginner's guide. We'll be done soon. The only thing I really wanted to mention, which is extremely worth knowing, at some point in the game, you will be able to level up your creatures like you want them to. Basically, your limit is your highest leveled creature. So don't you worry about leveling all those creatures manually. At the beginning, focus on one team, make it strong, push down the story, and then you have it way easier to specialize into new venues and trying out new things because they look fancy. But it's really worth it to push down the story with one powerful team. That's why I put such a high emphasis on the topic of selecting something you would possibly like at the beginning. I consider that a very important part. The smith here is also a very vital part of your strategy, which I want to mention. Artifacts are really, really, really important for your strategy. So try to equip your critters with the most high-tiered gear which you can, because these percentage bonuses on their stats, they make a huge difference. Also, as you see here, I still have slots open. What I wanted to mention though is that, let's see, the socketing of items gives you not only the ability to add stats, but also add so-called tricks, which are effects like berserk on damage, bleeding on damage. All these stats need to be looted in the game, so you won't have access to all the stuff you want at the beginning. But most importantly, there's also a trait slot. A trait slot gives you the ability to equip kind of like a second trait on a creature. So you see here the trait of this guy was that, and with that artifact I could equip even another trait from another creature. So this makes it possible to not only have 6 different traits on your team, but 12. So this is where I feel like you will transition from a beginner with a team of 6 that interact somehow, into the intermediate portion with a team that has 12 traits which interact quite well with each other. Keep in mind though, this is all a collectathon, and you won't be able to equip all the things as you want them to. I won't be talking too much about breeding and stat increases, because these things are really rather more experienced things. So yeah, I feel like I gave you now enough impression and knowledge about where to get started and where to head to in the beginning that you might, I hope you feel less lost now than before. So what your ultimate goals are your personal ones, up to you. So the further you press down the story, the more features you will unlock, the more game modes you will unlock, different difficulty levels, different challenges. The game is so laden with content, you won't be growing bored here. The only thing I had several times is a lack of time. Alrighty, so I'll sum it up here because I don't want to overload this video with too many informations. I hope that was kind of helpful to you. And feel free to drop me a comment about this tutorial. If there are questions, feel free to ask. If you feel like I missed out something which is quite important for beginners to know, just let me know or let others know, because I would be most happy if we would be allocating as much knowledge beneath this video as possible. Also, feel free to leave me a thumbs up on that video if you found that helpful. It really helps a ton to show the algorithm that you liked the video, and others may find it too. And of course, subscriptions would be absolutely welcome. You can turn on those notifications and stay tuned of my new content, or check out my channel and see what I have in store beyond that. Whatever you do or don't, I hope that you will enjoy Siralim Ultimate Sum and have a very nice day. Bye.